Okay, this is part 4 of How the West Was Won by Rodney Stark. This is the last part. Okay, so he's talking now about the Industrial Revolution in England. And, they used coal for energy, and coal enabled them to burn a fire hotter, and it enabled them to do more metallurgy and make more things out of iron rather than working with lousy metals like brass or bronze in comparison. And this also improved their military technology, their shipbuilding technology, gave England an advantage over other places. They had better ships. That's partly why they, kicked the Spanish butt, the Spanish Armada. Okay, we talked about James Watt, the Scottish guy making the steam engine. They developed the trains and the railroads in England. The European sailors then sailed south and sailed across the ocean to the Caribbean and South America. And you know what they found? They found tons and tons of human sacrifice and cannibalism. Okay, people don't like to talk about this, but it's the truth. Human sacrifice and cannibalism were common. The Aztecs and stuff and these other populations, they would just sacrifice millions of people. Not millions, thousands of people. Okay, they'd have piles of thousands of skulls. Cannibalism was very common. This is well known. You read about it, you'll be surprised how common it was. Okay, and like I said too, blacks had other blacks as slaves since the days of ancient Egypt, thousands of years ago. They still have them in Africa. Okay. So this idea that, America's so bad, that's a bunch of nonsense taught you in the public schools. Yeah, of course slavery is totally wrong, okay? But Christianity got rid of it. America got rid of it. It still exists all around the world in places that don't have Christianity. And also how backward these populations were, like the Incas. You're going to compare Inca civilization to Western civilization. They didn't even have a written language in the 1500s. Give me a break. The Aztecs, piling skulls thousands high in Mexico. Give me a break calling that a great civilization, okay? Spare me. Powerful countries routinely conquer weaker countries and impose colonialism. It's not right, but that's what they do. And it was extensive all over the ancient world. It's not like, the Europeans, conquering USA or colonizing it, really. And South America, Spain. That was what powerful countries did. Attila the Hun. The Ottoman Turks, okay, that's how it was. The Persians, Mesopotamians. Okay, and now for something completely different. The book started talking then about the time of the Reformation and talked about Martin Luther. And Martin Luther was about one of the most outspoken theologians that ever picked up a pen. Here'd be like a Martin Luther comment to the Pope. Hear this, thou, O Pope, not most holy but most sinful. Oh, that God from heaven would soon destroy thy throne and sink it into the abyss of hell. O Christ, my Lord, look down, let the day of thy judgment break and destroy this devil's nest at Rome. Okay, Martin Luther, yeah, he was kind of clever and he was kind of funny, but he was a big jerk, okay? It's because of him you had the Peasant War to follow. Over 100,000 German peasants were killed. And then the 30 Years' War, and a third of Germany's population wiped out. Okay, he broke apart Christendom. So the consequences of the Martin Luther's Reformation were mostly bad. Okay, and then what it did, Protestantism can't hold together. There is no cohesive unity in Protestantism. Everybody interprets the Bible for themselves, and what that results in, each sect just keeps breaking apart, becoming weaker and weaker, and then the secular ruler takes over the whole thing. Look at Anglicanism in England. It's a joke, okay? It's basically run by the secular ruler. Okay, and then Rodney Stark says, the influence of the printing press in the Reformation was exaggerated. Only about 5% of the German people could read, page 270. And a big part of that also was, the princes in Germany wanted it because they didn't like the people sending their money out of the country to Rome, okay? They wanted to keep that money. They wanted to tax the people themselves. Here's a quote of Luther in 1529 about how frustrated he was by the lack of education amongst the German peasants. He said, "Dear God, help us. The common man, especially in the villages, knows absolutely nothing about Christian doctrine. And indeed, many pastors are in effect unfit and not competent to teach. Yet they are all called Christians. They are all baptized and enjoy the holy sacraments, even though they cannot recite either the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, or the commandments. They live just like animals." Okay, the change to Protestantism, like look at Henry VIII, it was really an opportunity to loot the Roman Catholic Church. He just stole all their land, stole their churches, their monasteries, everything they owned. Okay, so he could have all those different wives and then bump them off. He bumped off like at least two of his wives, annulled his other marriages. Okay, that's the founder of Anglicanism. That guy, Henry VIII. What a joke. Okay, the German Peasant War, over 100,000 peasants killed. 30 Years' War wiped out a third of the German population. The big change in the Roman Catholic Church was that in the Counter-Reformation, the Church of Piety, so to speak, gained in power on the Church of Power, if you will, within. The Roman Catholic universities were declined in scientific significance. It was a big hit for the Catholic Church, of course. Okay, the last slide here for this book review on Rodney Stark's book, How the West Was Won. There was no such thing as a scientific revolution. The achievements of this era were built on the centuries of scientific work done by Catholic priests and monks. Page 303 and page 304 of the book. Aristotle is not a scientist because he mostly based his theories on logic rather than on scientific experimentation and testing things. Okay, he did dissect animals and stuff like that. Science is best defined as a method of systematic observations, organized efforts to explain nature, theory, and research, and to do experiments, and then analyze the data. It is now a consensus that real science only arose once, in Europe. Other countries had alchemy, but only Europe developed alchemy into chemistry. Only in Europe did astrology lead to advanced astronomy. He made lists of the 52 best scientists from 1500 to 1727. 25% were members of the clergy. Okay, that's a lot. 25% were members of the clergy. 60% of them were very devout, of these top scientists. Okay, another 38% were conventional and religious. There's only one out of them that was skeptic. Okay, so basically, less than 2%. These scientists were not Christians. Okay, and most of them were devout, and a full quarter of them were clergy. That's where the real scientific work was done. That's where modern science comes from. It comes from the Catholic Church. That's why people who say, oh, atheism doesn't need science, you don't need religion for science, it's actually untrue. You have to have Christian ethics for science, or then you don't have real science. Modern science that is done in all these universities and big pharma companies, that's not real science. It's advertising. They're trying to produce a product and generate sales for it. They don't do true science, okay? That's why there's been so little advance in medicine. I've been a doctor going on, gosh, how many years? 35 years, and I can tell you, there's been almost no improvement in patient outcomes. None. Patients are just as sick from cancer as they were diabetes, hypertension. There's been like almost zero improvement. We got better CAT scan machines, better MRI machines, better surgical equipment, but the patients aren't any better because the cause of their disease is ignored. Their diet, their exposure to toxins, all this stuff, their stress. Religious people are a lot healthier than non-religious people. Okay, but that's pretty extraordinary. You made all that point. If you go and just go to Wikipedia, even Wikipedia, which hates Christianity, it'll show you all these clergy scientists, all these Jesuit scientists, all these other Christian scientific researchers. In the modern world, big pharma and related big corporations, they suppress scientific research. They just want to sell their products. That's their job. Their loyalties to their stockholders and themselves. Okay. So England dominated science, 1600s, 1700s. Gradually, other countries became more free, like USA, and then it dominated science since then. Okay. And, the Christianity tells you the Bible, 10 Commandments, to tell the truth. Okay. With corporations, there's no incentive to tell the truth if it doesn't profit the corporation. USA had a lot more land. That gives it a big advantage on England, and it has good secure property rights, or at least it used to, in a highly educated population. It used to have that. In 1870, Great Britain had 32% of the world's manufacturing output, USA only 23%. But by 1929, USA had 42% of the world's manufacturing, and that's before World War II. So anyways, there it is. That's why the West just took off and dominated the whole world, because it had the Christian worldview, the Bible worldview. Man's created in the image of God. We can be creators like God. We can also, being created in His image, understand what He's done. It's a rational universe, and they had to compete with each other. All of that led to modern Western science, and the reason it dominated the world in academics and science. Okay, and nowadays lots of countries got smart people, and they're catching up here and there. But that's how it all works. And now as we're losing Christian ethics, the quality of science is down in the garbage can. And unless it comes back, we're not going to get ethics. And the big money players don't want Christian ethics because it's a restraint on what they can do. So anyways, that's where things are at. I hope you found that helpful.